Alright, looks like the audience is filling up nicely. I hope everybody's having a good day. Good evening and good morning, everyone! Welcome to the Crypto Unicorns Weekly AMA with Aron Beierschmitt, Crypto Unicorn CEO and co-founder. I'm Sparkly Unicorn, with my co-host Witty Unicorn,
Hi.
and with Stealthy Unicorn and Zealous Unicorn. This is the third in our weekly AMA series on the weeks leading up to the Crypto Unicorns game launch. Let's just run by the AMA mechanics real quick and then we can start. If you would like to ask your question on voice, please press the Request to Speak button. The button looks like a raised hand. You can press it as early as right now. You can queue up even while somebody's talking. Once we accept your request, you'll see a green bar at the top of your Discord. Click Accept to begin speaking. We'll pick people one by one so everybody has a chance to ask something. Once you're unmuted, feel free to ask your question. We also have questions for people who couldn't make it tonight, as well as shy unicorns. It's on the AMA Questions channel. We will get to those too, but we will prioritize spoken questions over written ones. Inevitably, we might not have enough time to cover all of the AMA questions, so if you would like to bring a written question to the front of the line, just press Request to Speak and ask away. Before we pick our first speaker, I just want to issue a friendly reminder for everybody to sign up for the Founders Reward Program. Stake 500 RBW for 12 months, sign the loyalty program, and remain a verified member of our Discord server to be qualified. Signups end on March 31, 2022, so be aware. More information can be found in the event bulletin channel under news and updates. Okay, it looks like the crowd is still warming up. We do not have requests yet. Biddy, can you give me a question?
All right. Uh, this one's from Manic Music. I have a question regarding the future of the DAO. Will this give all token holders a share in the profits in the future? For example, if you voted to use the treasury to create a TV show and it was passed, how would the profits from sales work for this? Would they go into the DAO treasury and in turn drive the value of RBW up? Hope this makes sense. It will.
Ooh. Good morning, good evening to unicorn fans everywhere. That's a great question. I believe in the principle of value accrual into the treasury. That's why via the primary sales of NFTs, secondary revenue on secondary market trading, if we ever do have partnerships with big brands or advertisers, et cetera, right? That would be deals between the DAO and those partners, and any revenue from those would flow into the treasury. And we've talked about this from the perspective of what we're trying to do long term with merchandise and things of that nature. Long term, the quick answer is quite simply that the DAO holders can vote to do what they will with that treasury over time. It's kind of my belief in the early days that the Treasury should accrue value to fund the kind of growth and expansion of the crypto unicorns game and just collective IP generally. And so I will continue to vote in that direction, through the early years. But who's to say how it evolves over time and whether or not in the future the holders of the RBW token, again, are going to be in control and can choose to leverage the treasury funds however they see fit. I think, again, in my mind, in the early days, we focus on value accrual into the treasury, and again, the RBW price should rise, should be commensurate with its ability to direct that value flow and, people caring about the direction of the IP, et cetera, et cetera. So I hope that answers the question. But generally, it's up to the DAO holders.
All right, so you heard that. It's up to the DAO holders. So we have a lot of governance soon. I hope you guys are excited for that. As we wait for requests to speak, I just want to remind everybody that the Capture the Land event has just started. Are you on Team Unicorn or Team Shadowcorn? Defend or attack to bring your team glory and prizes. Check the event bulletin channel under news and updates for helpful links to the event. By the way, please reply to the pin post. Your story does not count if it's not a reply to the pin post. Work together with your team to get that across and increase your chances of winning. If you weren't able to pick a role this week, no worries. You can try again next week. We have Dave versus Axie. Hey,
Hey, how's it going?
doing great. What's your question?
Hey, so I actually, candidly, I'm gonna probably do like a TLDR breakdown of my thoughts on RBW and Unum going into the launch. And I had well, kind of two questions, I think. So one is obviously we have Unum probably going to be ending on the staked through the dark forest here pretty shortly. So has there been anything announced as far as the next way of earning Unum until game launch? Is question one. Um, and then two, are we anticipating kind of at launch everything is functioning like as we've talked about before, from all of the harvesting, the crafting, breeding, or do we anticipate any hiccups coming for April 11th? So those are kind of my two questions.
Yeah, appreciate the questions, Dave. On the Unum side, the Dark Force is going to run out as planned, and there will not be any additional Unum sources. Let me rephrase that. We have not announced any additional Unum sources prior to the game launch. I certainly reserve the right, as we have in the past, to surprise people, and I'll leave it at that. Game launch wise, we are still targeting, obviously, harvesting, the farm loop, crafting in the workshop, breeding and evolution in the nursery. And at this time, the plan is, to complete and launch with that functionality. So I don't think any changes based on what we've announced. Oh, and the Rainbow Token Marketplace, of course, right? So again, the kind of core farm sim, will be complete. I know that engineering teams, crunching very hard, a little stressed right now. One of the major challenges in the space is, you don't just have client server, you've got client server plus the blockchain. Getting all three of those pieces to line up is certainly a very complex task. And we're also finding out that we basically have the most complex system that we've seen in the space, especially when you think about breeding and evolution, the idea of incorporating in-game boosters that affect those actions really is high complexity. So we want to be at a position, a place where we feel very confident, in all of those systems prior to launch. And I think we're all going to start to feel a lot better as these dominoes fall and we get more QA cycles against it. But to circle back, answer your question clearly, Dave, we do continue to plan to launch with the functionality we've been speaking about on the MVP side.
Awesome. And then actually one thing to clarify too, for the Rainbow Token Marketplace, it's been my assumption the whole time, and I think you clarified in our AMA that we did, it is going to be paying or selling exclusively in RBW. But with kind of the way the marketplace is going to work, do you have any more clarity kind of into how you expect that bonding curve to work? One thing I was talking to a group with last night that I couldn't quite answer, just again, kind of just doing theory crafting on what I think is going to happen once. How how the bonding curves is going to maybe be reset or adjust on a daily basis, and if it will, um, and like if is there going to be new, say, berries or materials that you might be selling in there? I know you said you're going to have new stuff in there every day, but like for instance, say there's 10,000 honeycombs at launch, I buy 9,000 of them. So there's only 1,000 left. I don't burn them. So they're still sitting in my wallet. Do you come back the next day with 1,100, or do you come back the next day with 10,000 honeycombs again? Just kind of I'm trying to understand how the bonding curve and the introduction or reintroduction of new materials or berries each day will affect in market prices.
The Rainbow Token Marketplace, right, is effectively a centralized exchange, right, in the control of our design team. So we will set the types of bundles on a daily basis, right? And of course, we have the ability to monitor buying and selling behavior, right? And so we can kind of look at what's popular versus not. I would kind of expect over time, you'll see a reoccurring set of bundles per day that are, we see as being very popular. And then we'll probably do, some of the higher value items and things like that more infrequently because those crafted items, those, really high tier breeding boosters and stuff will be pretty complex to craft and to get to. Not necessarily something you can just churn out a ton of every single day. And to clarify, and I know I've said bonding curve before, it's really much more of a pricing curve in that we're going to set the pricing curves, yes, on a daily basis. We can adjust them in real time if necessary, and we're going to set them based on what we feel the kind of fair price of those items and materials are. And then again, the market will kind of decide if people are selling items in against that price, the price drops. If people are buying against that price, the price will rise. And so leveraging kind of pricing curves on an individual bundle basis gives us a lot of granularity over the Rainbow Token Marketplace. And then, yes, to reinforce, like, all of that buying and selling is denominated in RBW, Dave.
Awesome. That's kind of how I thought about it too. Is there any comment as far as like a day to day or maybe even like a week to week if something went very hot on either hot or cold? So to say someone came through and they sold thousands of moonberries versus someone else who came in and bought all of the candy berries, as an example, maybe. Um, do you see that like your kind of adjustments will be slowly up? So obviously, say like moonberries are really popular. Someone bought a ton the first day. Are they going to kind of reset to the old price the next day so that they could then buy a ton again? Or would it be more, okay, it's clearly the popular type or berry that someone's going after. We're going to keep that price elevated, but maybe down a little bit so that we can kind of reassess the market from there.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's our responsibility to balance the sinks and the sources, and you can expect the pricing curves on a per bundle basis to reflect our um, desire to, again, balance the sinks and sources, right? But it's interesting. I mean, if there ends up being an oversupply of any one, berry type, that potentially will deflate the price of that berry over any number of weeks, depending on how, large that oversupply is, right? I think you really shouldn't think about trying necessarily to like arbitrage the RBW market. I think there will be individual moments where you come in and you need an item, and maybe other people have been selling that item that day, and thus there's more supply. The price is down. That's a great win for you, right? But again, ultimately, we're looking to balance the sources and sinks, not just of the like hard currencies, the on-chain currencies, but of course all of the centralized soft currencies, right? I mean, that's very, very important to the game itself. And these individual pricing curves against each bundle give us a lot of granularity to do so. So I don't know how to necessarily answer this specific scenario, Dave, but we'd kind of be looking in aggregate, right, at the buying and selling of those two bundles and be structuring the data or the tuning around the pricing curve, to reward the behavior that we care about, which again is a balanced economy.
Sweet. No, that's awesome. I would just say, yeah, we had like probably an hour and a half discussion on crypto unicorns last night with a group
Nice.
I'm with, and so it was it got really in depth, and so I'm actually about to run into the gym, but I did want to say a shout out to I love what you have done with the RBW staking rewards and the unicorn milk season holding rewards. It's just
Thank you.
it's really the more I've thought about it, and so that's also why I kind of wanted to do like a little Medium article today or tomorrow or something like that. It's just because there's a lot there that you're doing in the decision to be centralized versus decentralized. And you're kind of, to me, becoming one of the first games that's almost a Web 2 ish game, but everything layered into it is an NFT and owned by the player. And even if it's not on chain, like because you're going to be doing the airlock and stuff like that, you're still have a marketplace that it's not just like, oh, it's stuck and you can't do anything with. And since you're using currency that goes back on chain, I mean, it's just, I think I'm really excited. So, all that to
Thank you,
say, I
Dave.
just wanted to give you a shout out specifically on at least the rewards too, because I know that I heard your last AMA, people were worried, oh, are you worried about the 30-day drop off? People just sell their RBW. And I'm kind of not either because you have the year-long staking rewards and same for unicorn milk. Like you have the rewards to hold through the season, and there's going to be a new one each time. With who knows what those new rewards are going to be. So all in all, I'm just very excited. But I got to run and just want to say thanks and thanks again for hosting these every week. It's always great to pop in and listen. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dave. Appreciate all the support, man.
Definitely.
All right. Thank you so much, Dave. Next up, we have Pharaoh9097. Coming up, Pharaoh.
Oh, hello guys.
Hi.
Hi.
How you doing?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear
Yeah.
you.
Okay.
Let's
I have a question about the breeding. About the mythic. If you have like two mythic from like different classes, is the chance of getting a mythic baby same as like you have two mythic from a same classes?
I'm gonna have to follow up. I don't know the answer to that. Let me message the design team. I'm sure one of them is probably listening to this. But I will respond in the AMA questions channel with the answer to that. Yeah, I don't know specifically if you pair two of the same classes of mythics together, if that's going to give you a higher chance. If you have mythics and two mythics being bred, you certainly have a higher chance of pulling mythic parts. But I will follow up and clarify on the class synergy or not. It's a very good question.
Oh, appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Pharaoh. Next up, we have The Truth 2. Please step up. Hi. We can't hear you. Hello? Okay. While you're fixing your mic, let's move on to Pharaoh again. I think he wants to come back to ask a question. Just cue back on when your mic is ready. Oh, wait, he left. Let's have Alex A. Hi, Alex. Sorry, could you say that again?
Hello.
There we go. Hey.
Hey, shout out to the whole team. Um, I'm really excited about the game. How, however, I can observe from many of the games that um, it seems they're just promoting their game to those who are already in the crypto world or in the blockchain technology. For your team, do you have some plans on engaging or encouraging the population who are in the gaming world, but they are in the traditional gaming sector, not in the uh, not yet in the NFT space?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely get this question a bunch. I think we think about it in a bunch of different ways. Like, first off, there's a lot of barriers to entry right now, specific to things like the wallet user experiences largely are still trash, and just not great generally. We are on Polygon, and so you have usually a bridge, to get from ETH mainnet or the Binance chain or whatever over to it. That's still intimidating and scary, and so I look at that, and those barriers to entry are going to hold back a wider consumer market. Now, the reality is software and user experience improves greatly over time. We've seen that happen time and time again. So I'm very confident that those are temporary, barriers to entry. I do think we continue to be focused on kind of a crypto native crowd. I think we're looking at maybe now pushing 15,000 unique wallets. We still have, millions of wallets that we can potentially scale to. And so I'm very much focused on how we get from 15,000 to 100,000 to a million before I'm even looking at, how do we get to 10 million plus wallets. To give kind of a very specific example, like we're getting very close to the Horizon Labs team. They're building Skyweaver, and they've also built a really phenomenal wallet called Sequence. Sequence is built on the Taurus smart contract wallet infrastructure. It's very cool tech. They've created a really phenomenal user experience that I think is very appealing to people who are not crypto native. It includes the ability to use social login to sign into your wallet. It's technically like a multi-key wallet, and they custody one of the keys, so there's account recovery and things of that nature. They also have MoonPay and several other payment providers that are going to let you go directly from credit card or debit card to having USDC on Polygon without a bridge. And they have about 240,000 users on their platform, right? And I was actually catching up. This week is Game Developers Conference here in the Bay Area, and so I was actually meeting with Peter, the founder, face-to-face last night. And we're pretty excited about, looking at integrating their wallet in the coming months post-launch. And again, that's going to open us up to, think about it. We've got 14K. They've got 240,000. So again, I'm definitely thinking forward and into the future like you are, but right now very much focused on the first few steps from growing us from where we're at to, again, 100K and then a million. And then from there, it does start to look like how do we onboard and on-ramp more and more people. I've had a number of discussions with developers at the conference here this week who are very interested in building on top of the Crypto Unicorns IP, helping us release more battle loops than certainly Laguna Games could do on its own. And there's several discussions that we're having that will look like potential mobile spin-out kind of companion apps that will have over time a path to free-to-play on-ramps that I think is also really very interesting. So again, don't want to look like or sound like I'm sidestepping your question. But again, I think it's a process. There's the first few steps that we're looking at and very, very focused on, and then we'll just keep moving up and looking to grow the audience wider and wider over time. Thank you for the question, though.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alex. Okay, let's have a written question now.
All right, this one's from Elist. By game launch, the only available thing to do is to breed and farm and level up the lands through building upgrades. Are we going to see a more detailed amount of UNIM and RBW that can be farmed once the game goes live? With the current price of UNIM and RBW plus the current floor of unicorns, when the earning versus capital doesn't align that much, there would be a pretty bad price corrections in the first few weeks of the game.
I'm not really sure what the concern is there.
The question is, are we going to see a more detailed amount of UNIM once the game is released? That can be farmed once the game goes live.
UNIM and RBW can only come from the gathering quests, and those are RNG based, right? So you will not have, like the Dark Forest, some ability to just guarantee an amount of UNIM or RBW in the game. I think we are looking at ways to increase the supply, and again, prices. Again, I continue to underestimate the amount of demand for our tokens. So we'll monitor that closely and ensure that we're progressing towards the goal of getting to 90,000 unicorns as quickly as possible. And certainly don't want any blockers to that. But again, like Axie died based on the simple mistake of scaling SLP linearly with new DAO. We're not going to make that mistake. So we have a lot more levers. And again, if there's undersupply in the market, we can pull the lever and supply more via things like gathering quests. Obviously, we have the loot box system, which will come online after the game is launched. We'll have the leaderboard payouts and things beginning to happen. And so, again, I think we have plenty of sources and obviously plenty of syncs between breeding and evolution, as well as the crafting system at game launch. And I hope that answers the question. Again, I'm not going to comment or speculate on the prices of game tokens, just generally.
Okay, yeah, that definitely makes a lot of sense. As we don't have any requests right now, let me just remind everybody, do you want a Genesis egg? Head on over to our Twitter for the Workshop Wizard Corn retweet event. Choose 3 crafting items and think about something that you can make. If we reach 3,000 retweets, we'll raffle 3 Genesis eggs to the community. My favorite recipe so far is the Geode Core, Power Pack, and the Lunar Rocks combined to form a lunar battery. You could give Tesla a run for his money with that. Same deal. Check the event bulletin channel under news and updates for helpful links to the event. Okay, let's have another written question.
We've got one from Winter and Summer. In delegating the NFT, if a scholar violates the rules of the game or the community, how do we secure the risks of the NFT owner in this matter? Is there any understanding on this issue? Are there mechanisms for dealing with such situations?
The way the NFT delegation system is designed, again, it's very similar to decentral games, kind of ice poker. It is a centralized system that provides a manager with the ability to trustlessly lend an asset to another player, and that other player, scholar, whatever you want to call them, can utilize those assets, obviously without control of them at all, right? And then the payments, as the scholar puts RBW and Unim into the stash, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, all of that process is automated, right? So the concern that I think is being raised really isn't one, because if the scholar does something to violate, the terms, or is, simply misusing the assets, the manager, the owner of the assets, can reject a delegation at any time. At that point, they would have their assets back, and we would split whatever the Unim and RBW earned up to that point is. So I think we've done the best we can to mitigate that by giving effectively an off switch, on behalf of the owner in their delegating of assets.
All right, thank you for that. Just a clarification. I think one of the things that was included in what you were asking is what happens usually in Axie, where if a scholar does something to make the Axie banned, um, it's the manager's loss. Would you say that like a situation like that couldn't happen in CU?
I mean, I guess if there was bot behavior or something like that that was abusive, that would be somewhat difficult. It's going to be handled on a case by case, basis by the customer support team. Is really what's going to happen on that front. So I think it's too hard to generalize around what that situation would be, right? It kind of depends. If the manager is the one telling the scholars to do the things, right, their assets could certainly get banned. If it's the scholar kind of acting on their own, then it doesn't seem very fair to ban the managers. This is why I love the idea of decentralized and distributed governance, because we're going to put these things on trial. I'm going to let all of y'all decide. I'm tired of making all the decisions all the time. And that's the beauty of embracing community ownership and governance. So again, we can have a whole trial, by fire, present the evidence and vote, would be my take.
All right, I'm sure a lot of people are happy to hear that. Next
I
up,
hope so.
yeah. Next up, let's have another written question.
All right, we have one from Longy. Will you eventually transition out of OpenSea? It's not the best platform to use for buying and selling assets. How soon can we expect to see a unicorn marketplace in the game?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely not a fan of OpenSea either. They're just not really set up to. I think they don't have an optimized user experience for gaming NFTs in particular. We have dreams of a unicorn swap, if you will, that would be kind of our own front end that would ingest data from the game, display stats as we see the genes, even the provenance of the unicorns, like, oh, it won this jousting tournament, or, won this big race, or what have you. But that is definitely a long term roadmap piece. I'm actively recruiting and growing our web dev team around a phenomenal guy named Matthew, who's our web lead. And again, as that kind of team grows and scales, my hope is that they can begin to tackle projects like that. The dream for me is like we have Unicorn Swap. If you list on Unicorn Swap, you're still auto listing on OpenSea. This functionality is possible in a composable world of the blockchain. But we as a community would then encourage people to trade on, Unicorn Swap. If you trade on Unicorn Swap, obviously less fees. The fees go directly to the treasury. We all kind of win in that, in that standpoint. So that's definitely something that I very much want to build, but it's kind of a long-term roadmap thing as of right now. And when I say long-term, I'm talking like over 6 months away, I would say. Unless we got a bunch of web devs in the audience that want to come build, hit me up.
Dubs, you know what to do. Okay, we have the truth coming back to ask his question. Come on over. Is your mic working?
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
It's a great question. I mean, there's definitely a bunch. I've mentioned my love for like crypto raiders before. I'm also a big fan of Miles and the Decentral Games team. I think we could do a really fun crossover, do a unicorn wearable swag for their ice poker system. I think that would just be hilarious and a lot of fun. Um, in kind of the wider NFT world, obviously it would be hard to ignore what Yuga Labs has done over the last few weeks. That's certainly been very impressive. I hope everyone saw that basically the largest profile pick NFT project in the world post their acquisition of CryptoPunks, and the combination of them and Bored Ape and Meebits. We saw them collectively pivot into gaming, and I thought that was very interesting. They're also building land as dioramas that you piece together into world maps, and so hey. um, so no, I mean, I do think, and of course they made an open call out with their pitch, especially if you saw the leaked deck on Twitter, to other companies to come in and integrate their assets into the experience that they're kind of building. And so I'm very interested in that. We have had conversations with other groups like the Decentraland team. Obviously, we know people at Animoca and the Sandbox team as well. So yeah, I am very interested and open to collaborations and kind of partnerships with other Web3 DAOs and brands and things of that nature for sure. Yes. Yeah, so I mean, this is something that has been kind of at the forefront of our minds from the beginning. It's why I always kind of call us a hybrid game. And I speak very openly about the aspects of the game that are centralized. Rob Sampson, who's our technical director, he came up with, I think, a really brilliant architecture that we have implemented. And so this will be at game launch. So the flow is going to be really simple, right? You will connect your wallet to the game, you will load the game, and the first action you'll have to do is airlock your assets into the game. And so that is a individual transaction on a per asset basis. The beauty of that is once an asset is airlocked in the game, this is not staking. The asset does not leave your wallet. It does become non-transferable in the airlock because we don't want to deal with weird edge cases of you trying to sell a plot of land that's been upgraded, et cetera, et cetera. But the beauty of that is once airlocked in the game, you know, like for example, you can upgrade your land from level 1 to level 10 over a period of 12 months and not have another transaction until you airlock it out of the game, right? And so we have this ability to kind of update the state. If you're like, hey, I want to now take this level 8 piece of land and go sell it on OpenSea, you would airlock it out of the game. That metadata would get instantly updated with that action. You'd be able to take it on OpenSea and trade it. With unicorns, you have the breeding, the evolution. Those are blockchain transactions. There's really no way to avoid that while having, you know, a trustless transaction that pulls from like Chainlink's VRF and all that fun stuff that the space kind of enables and gives us a lot more transparent mechanism for those operations. But if we're talking about coming in, harvesting berries, crafting, like all of that kind of stuff, you really should have very few to no blockchain transactions on a daily, like session by session basis. The one thing to think through is as you accumulate RBW and Unim in the game, you have the option, of course, to sync that with your wallet, right? I would avoid those actions if you're going to be like doing a bunch of crafting, for example, right? Because if you do sync out to your wallet and you are crafting a higher level item that requires Unim, you're actually going to have to submit a blockchain transaction to spend that Unim. And again, if it's in your stash in game and it has not been synced to your crypto wallet, you're able to just spend that in game without a blockchain transaction. It's purely up to you. If you want it always in your wallet, you can lean into that. There's more transactions on that front. Otherwise, yeah, again, you know, there's going to be far less transactions, especially relative to things like DeFi kingdoms and stuff, which is basically every action is a blockchain transaction. So, yeah, I mean, that's been the design direction kind of from the beginning and why we kind of consider ourselves a hybrid game in the space. Very good question. I hope that answer was helpful. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty intense. It's definitely pretty intense. Yeah, please do. Yeah, definitely. I'm always down and love spreading, you know, spreading the word. It's funny though, you call out, you know, we are, I guess, under the radar still relative to many projects, but it's also interesting the insane amount of success that we've had still being predominantly under the radar. And I think that's something that's pretty special. And everyone here should definitely recognize. I think there's certainly a lot of exciting potential in the future, especially as we start to go wide. There is this aspect too that we all need to understand, which is like when the game goes live, we start to breed. The overall supply of the NFTs begins to increase. We start to see people crafting keystones. Those keystones get spent. More land is then minted. That is a vessel for onboarding the next set of players and like how we go from 14K wallets to 100K to a million. Like that's going to be a very, very important process. It's actually collectively on us all to do that. I think there's enormous benefits on the other side of that, for all of us. And it's something I'm very, very excited about. But yes, reach out to the team. Happy to schedule a podcast. Yeah, for sure. So the NFT delegation feature, which will not be live at launch, will go live after launch. That is effectively that system, right? So you'll be able to delegate any number of NFTs to any number of accounts and effectively recruit people to run those accounts. We manage the payment split, so there's no hassle on your front to do so. Obviously, it's trustless in that, the individual doing the work is not in control of those assets. So that's kind of our first system. The original proposal from design was much more of a lending system. I think that will make more sense after jousting and racing. And again, is something that, I'd invite the community to, signal their desire for lending marketplace features kind of versus the NFT delegation stuff. But that's absolutely on the roadmap and a big part of our plan here in Q2. Yeah, I appreciate that. All right, I have an answer from our design team on the prior question with respect to mythic parts. The short answer is yes. If you have two mythics of the same class, the newborn is going to have a greater chance to inherit that mythic part because it's effectively rolling for part inheritance from both parents that happen to be mythic, have mythic parts. The key thing there, though, is mythics with the same parts, which is very, very rare. Two mythics of the same class with different mythic parts are also going to have the chance of inheriting a different mythic part from each parent. So obviously that is better as well. And they're going to have a tiny chance, of course, at the double mythic. So yes, the answer to the question prior is if you do have two mythics of the same class, it is a higher chance of getting a better mythic. So that was a good question to ask, and there's a little alpha on the day for everyone here.
Alpha of the day, everybody. Thank you so much to the design team for being so on top of things. I didn't expect that we would get an answer like in this AMA. They're quick. All right, so we will get in touch with the Truth too for that podcast. Next up, we have Martin19. Up, SW Martin19. Hey.
Hey, can you hear me all right?
Yep, we can hear you.
Yeah.
All right, great. Hey, Aaron, thanks per usual for being so generous with your time. You've stated in the past in previous AMAs that the long-term sustainability is better in this game because there's a lot of economic depth and like levers you can pull. So I guess I was just curious if you've thought about like what the transparency will be on that. Like if you guys will be kind of pulling levers slightly in the background, or if there'll be like a weekly meta change where you make announcements. I know you don't want to put it in the hands of governance because that gets into conflicting interests for sure, which I understand. But I guess I'm just curious how that process will look.
Yeah, we do value transparency on that front, and I would expect probably like weekly meta updates, if you will, which will very much naturally flow into larger meta design changes with respect to the battle loops over time. So I definitely would see us, discussing that. I think, mods, the community team have done this phenomenal job of interweaving story and other really fun elements, little meta mini games, et cetera, in Discord relative to things like, all the Dark Forest stuff that we've been doing, et cetera. And so I could see over time if like there's some group that's, just dumping cloudberries every day for whatever reason, and that becomes a thing. We can build fiction around that and have an event around that. And so, there's going to be this mixture of like things we don't tell the community because we want to surprise them. The RBW marketplace, though, you're going to come in, you're going to see the bundles, you're going to see the price, you're going to see kind of like the total amount that can be bought or sold that day. And so you're going to have a reasonable amount of transparency with respect to that. People who are checking daily and looking at market prices, they're going to notice when, oh, interesting, Cloudberries got listed at a lower price. That's probably a signal from us, the developers, that there are, not enough Cloudberries in the market, right, or vice versa. And so, anyway, I would expect transparency on that at some level, and I do think it's going to look a lot like meta updates weekly.
Awesome, great answer. I appreciate you providing light there.
Yeah, thank you. Good question.
All right, thank you so much, Martin. By the way, since we're talking about community, we're always looking for ways to make the community feel heard. So please join our community pre-launch survey event and get the chance to win loot boxes. The more people join, the more loot boxes we give away. Check the event bulletin channel under news and updates for helpful links to the event. Next up, we have Ben M. Come up, Ben M. Hey.
Hi, Aaron. How are you? Hello, team.
I'm doing fantastic, Ben. Hope you are well, sir.
I'm doing fantastic as well. I just have a hypothetical question around RBW. As you've kind of stated, the demand for the token's very high. We're going to go into hopefully a hyper growth phase at game release with a bunch of new users. Token demand maybe goes up even further, which increases the price. Let's say RBW is now sitting at $20 to $25. It takes 35 RBW to make a new unicorn. That's like $900 for barrier to entry just on that resource alone. Would you consider lowering the amount of RBW at that time so that new users have a easier time getting a cheaper unicorn to get in and play the game?
I mean, it's a great question. You have to think about it in phases. Like we did a community airdrop, right, in which people got RBW for free, right, and that was meant to go to and did go to people who'd been holding, right, and who are ready to play the game. So we looked and designed that very specifically so that people would have a leg up and would not need to be market buying RBW to breed and evolve their unicorns. And again, we already have the unicorns in land in the hands of the people who are going to take it from 10,000 to 90,000. That's a kind of our first community goal. That will take a period of time. We obviously have a lot of modeling around that tells us roughly how much time that's going to take. And then we also have the model around how much additional UNIM and RBW be distributed via the game over that period of time. And I look at that and I go, I think that will be sufficient to keep prices within reasonable bands. And we will see if that is the case. We have all these phenomenal levers. The loot boxes, great example of, oh shit, we need to get a bit more RBW or UNIM into the economy, tweak the reward tables, right? Which of course favors people that continue to get loot boxes, those that are in the Founders Reward Program, et cetera. And so I think it's like this virtuous cycle that, again, gives us a lot of opportunity to balance, and we just have way more levers in general than most of the games that are kind of launching right now. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, to some levels. I'm just trying to like, for me personally, trying to forecast like, is RBW going to be kind of stuck with inside the game levers to keep barrier to entry low? Like for example, in Axie, when AXS got to like $160, they reduced the amount of AXS you needed to breed, which allowed the token to go up in value more easily. So I guess that's just where I was kind of coming from a, forward
I mean, that's
thinking.
certainly a ripcord, and that's a ripcord that we can pull at any time if it becomes necessary, right? My answer was more specific to like, I don't think that's a ripcord we need to pull right off the bat. I mean,
Yeah, for sure.
again, I continue to underestimate the demand. I think a large chunk of the price action is because one of the smaller centralized exchanges listed us. Like I said before, they didn't even, to my knowledge, reach out. I may have deleted some emails from them, but they listed us. We did not pay them a dime. I will never pay a centralized exchange to get listed. And so we just have these people that see our volume, see our token, and want a bite of that. And so it is very interesting. We are obviously out of control or not in control when a centralized exchange chooses to list us. So it was a bit of a surprise to me. And that is the beauty of the game that we've set up, in that we can make changes as necessary to respond to, market prices.
Yep. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I appreciate the question, Ben. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Benham. Let's move forward to a written question.
We've got one from Kais. According to the current plan, Unim mining is about to end. Shadowcorns is about to release roadmap. LP mining is about to go online, and the game is about to go online. It seems that big events are happening, but like many GameFi games, the brightest moment is when the game goes online, and then it goes downhill. May I ask if Aaron has enough countermeasures to deal with the game's failure to meet expectations? Of course, we believe that the game is exciting enough.
I feel like I've answered this question a bunch in different ways, but it's important to understand, and I appreciate that it's top of mind. Just trying to think if there's a better way for me to answer this. Most of the economies that we've seen in the space have very simple structures, and they almost always have really one sink for the commodity currency that you're earning, and questionable value related to the governance token, because many of them actually lack governance. And so that's one of the reasons that we've moved so aggressively forward with getting, the government's forum launched next week, along with kind of my big blog post on how I think about governance. I'm very excited to kind of chat with the community about, and our first snapshot vote targeted for, April 7th, really trying to move forward, embrace that as, quickly as we can. Because again, there's certainly value in directing a treasury that's got, over 32 million in it at this point. And, an IP that seems to be resonating and growing. The Unim side, the commodity side, the commodity currency side, like that's very basic sink and supply, and making sure that the delta between those is a very, very narrow band. And we've yet to see a game launch with anywhere close to the depth of our economy. And I know I keep coming back to that, but that is the crux of our thesis on why there is a sustainable outcome here. If people are in Discord or here in this community just trying to figure out the optimal way to sell a bunch of berries into the RBW marketplace, they're probably going to be disappointed. You try and dump berries one day, you're going to kind of collapse the price, becomes very inefficient. Like the best practice is going to be selling, some every day, buying what you need. Very European, I would say. And breeding your corns, being excited to check in on them, trading new corns to onboard newly bred corns to new players, which is certainly a profit opportunity. There's no question about that. And again, I think we're in a state where we've got to get from 10 to 90,000. There's enormous resources there to get that done, to be able to do that, especially when you think about the crafting sink of upgrading the farm plots, upgrading the workshop to open up new slots. There's a lot of depth there that, again, at least all the games that I've seen in the space that are launched and live today just do not have. And again, that is our thesis on how we believe this becomes sustainable, right? And then you have the jousting loop, and oh wow, now there's this entire set of utility for corns that we discover as having good jousting, genes, if you will, effectively stats, right? And then racing launches, and now all of a sudden, there's another avenue. And then Team RPG launches, and that becomes probably the hungriest of the battle loops, right? Because you need 5 unicorns on a team individually. We expect to onboard more and more players over time. And ultimately, I think it's really important to acknowledge that we see the economy in 3 phases. The growth phase. And the growth phase, you do get away with a little bit, because if you're onboarding new people into the experience, you're obviously bringing new people into the world. The treasury continues to accrue value. Those who are early have people that they can trade with. They benefit from being early. The overall cost of the NFTs goes down as it inflates supply, right? And does lower a barrier to entry, which allows you to continue to grow. At some point, that runs out, and most games collapse at that point. And that's what we've seen across the few examples that exist. The phase after the growth phase is the transitional phase. The transitional phase will begin to focus the community on the optimization and advancement of their unicorns versus raw supply inflation. So that's through things that we've talked about, like further evolutionary tiers, adding runes and potentially even equipment to unicorns that give new avenues of investment for players, and new things to kind of grind for. That should be exciting. That should be fun. Adding things like burn cards as additional layers to the jousting, potentially even the racing simulations, which again would add syncs as well as increase the gameplay, I think, in the gameplay depth in exciting ways. And then we have the Shadow Corns. The Shadow Corn roadmap coming next week, I think, is going to be very exciting to see. And it introduces some very interesting mechanisms, like a deflationary mechanism on the unicorns. And it's I don't know. It's going to be, I think, a lot of fun. And none of y'all can see me, but I'm kind of sitting here smiling because I'm enjoying the problem space. I'm enjoying the roadmap that we're putting together, and all the, I think, exciting surprises that are going to be here. And I think, again, we have a lot of potential to aggregate a audience of people that, genuinely enjoy and love this IP and want to see it evolve and grow over a number of years. And that is what leads to sustainability. I mean, what's very interesting about token economics, if you just think about it at a raw level, it's like you're buying into these tokens. You can kind of see an economy on chain built around an experience, an idea, whatever it is, right? It can literally be anything. In our case, it happens to be a game, this combination of a game and a social network that happens to be this community of people, etc. And when you see the token economies die, usually that's simply a signal of people leaving, exiting. They're done with this. I'm going to move on to the next thing. Most games don't last very long. So that's why we focused from the beginning on leveraging a lot of what we learned in the 4X MMO space, try and build experiences that were designed to last. And designed to last doesn't mean this infinite ROI, we're all going to stick $1 in and get $10 out. That's just impossible, and math doesn't work out that way. But I do think we can create a value system that rewards people for making contributions. Occasionally people do get lucky in breeding. You get a double, you get a triple mythic. I can't wait till somebody pulls a quad mythic. an epic or a legendary. I mean, those are going to be insane, fun moments. Breeding the hidden classes, all of that stuff I think is fun, is exciting. And again, I think it will aggregate people who are here to play and earn, to enjoy and have fun in the community together. And that is the only path to true kind of long-term sustainability over time, that at least I can see in the space today. So I guess that turned into a bit of an Aron rant. Again, I think I've been asked that question almost every time, and just wanted to try and do my best to respond and give some clarity around how we're thinking about what is ultimately an experiment in the space. Given no one has actually ever proven this stuff before, and that's terrifying and very exciting for myself and the team. And again, we're pumped to collaborate with the community on this, very important problem, and we hope to solve it and prove that we are the first sustainable example in the industry this year.
Aw, the community definitely appreciates having you at the head of CU. I bet everybody's glad to hear the enthusiasm that you enjoy solving all of the logistics and how things work. And the Aaron rants, they're iconic. You'll never
Good.
be sorry for that.
Well, thank
Okay.
you.
Wow, time passed by so fast. All right, that wraps up our third weekly AMA. How do you feel about this AMA, Aaron?
These are a lot of fun. I enjoy doing them. I hope that we can kind of continue the weekly cadence as we have been. And yeah, huge shout out to everyone here. Wonderful CM team, the mods, and everyone in our wider community. Ooh woo.
Oh, I love it. The entire community is just sharing the Ubu energy right now. Every AMA feels like a big step closer to the launch. I know the Unifam feels it too. We love how the liquidity discussion has been going on in the Ask the Devs channel, by the way. So we opened up dev discussion if people are interested in deep discussion about the latest crypto unicorn happenings. The channel is right next to Ask the Devs. We're aware that you guys had a lot of questions, so if they weren't answered this AMA, please look forward to our fourth weekly AMA at the same time next week. We'll post a recording of this AMA in our socials if you would like to give it a re-listen. Don't forget to share this with your friends and your fellow unicorn fam who couldn't make it. If you have more questions, feel free to reach out to our support channels, Mod Support, and Ask the Devs. This has been Sparkly Unicorn with co-host Witty Unicorn and Tex, Stealthy Unicorn, and Zealous Unicorn. Good morning and good night, Unicorn fam! Ooh, ooh.